A major shift just hit the United States economy, and it started with a new Canadian trade law passed in 2025. What seemed like a routine policy change is now threatening key industries across the United States, and several states are already feeling the pain. Jobs are vanishing, exports are stalling, and local economies are starting to break down. In this video, we'll reveal the 8 U.S. states most at risk of collapse, and why this Canadian law could trigger a wider economic crisis. Number 1. Michigan. Michigan, once a symbol of American manufacturing strength, is now facing a serious economic storm. For years, the state's economy has been fueled by the automotive industry. Factories in Detroit, Flint, and other industrial cities have depended on smooth trade with Canada, especially Ontario, to move car parts, assemble vehicles, and distribute finished products. But the new trade law in Canada has made everything harder. The country has introduced new environmental standards, added tariffs on auto parts made in the United States, and tightened labor regulations for imports. As a result, Michigan's car industry is facing higher costs, longer wait times, and reduced competitiveness. Small suppliers are shutting down, larger companies are scaling back. Over 14% of smaller auto part businesses have already closed this year, and this isn't just affecting car makers. Other industries are hurting too. Trucking, warehousing, and even real estate are seeing slowdowns as jobs vanish. If this trend continues, Michigan could lose one of its most important sources of income, and fast. Number 2. Maine. Maine is often overlooked in national economic debates, but its economy is highly exposed to trade with Canada. Many of Maine's industries rely on access to Canadian ports, especially in Quebec and New Brunswick. This includes seafood, timber, and even specialty agricultural goods. But with Canada's new trade law, things have changed. Seafood like lobster and scallops from Maine now face stricter inspection rules and new biosafety laws. Some Canadian ports have even banned certain United States seafood products completely. For fishermen and seafood exporters in Maine, this is a nightmare. About 40% of Maine's seafood exports went to Canada in past years. Now many are losing their biggest markets. On the lumber side, logging businesses are also in crisis. Fewer permits are being granted for United States trucks to bring wood across the border. That's led to an oversupply of timber in Maine, pushing prices down and forcing small companies to shut down. With job losses rising in small towns and local banks reporting more loan defaults, Maine's economy is dangerously close to collapse, unless something changes soon. Number 3. North Dakota. North Dakota might seem like a quiet rural state, but it's a powerhouse when it comes to energy and agriculture. The problem? Both of those industries rely heavily on trade, especially with Canada. Under Canada's new law, subsidies are being given to Canadian farmers and energy producers. That makes it much harder for American goods to compete, especially from North Dakota. Grain producers are struggling. Shipments of wheat, soybeans, and barley have been canceled or delayed. Canadian buyers now prefer homegrown crops, and prices in North Dakota have plummeted. Oil producers are in a similar position. Canada's updated environmental rules have made it harder for American crude oil to be transported through cross-border pipelines. Many of the state's oil rigs in the Bakken Formation have stopped operating. Public services are already being cut due to declining tax revenue. Teachers are being laid off. Roads are going unrepaired. And for many farming families, this might be the worst financial year in over a decade. If this pressure continues, North Dakota may lose a large part of its rural economy for good. Number 4. Vermont. Tiny Vermont might not seem like a major player, but it's deeply connected to Canada, especially in agriculture and tourism. In the past, Canadian tourists poured into Vermont's ski resorts, farms, and mountain towns, spending millions. Now, with stricter travel rules and higher fuel costs at the border, tourism has dropped over 60%. On top of that, Vermont's famous cheese, maple syrup, and dairy goods now face tough packaging and labeling requirements. Shipments are being held up or rejected completely under Canada's new guidelines. These changes are crushing small producers. Farmers are losing revenue. Resort towns are laying off seasonal workers. And vacation rentals that once brought steady income are now sitting empty. Without quick changes to the trade laws or emergency support from Washington, Vermont's rural communities could see deep, lasting damage. Number 5. Ohio. Ohio has long been an industrial giant in America. It builds steel, ships goods, and grows crops that feed the world. But when trade slows down, Ohio feels it hard. The new Canadian law hits Ohio in several ways. First, any goods made in high-carbon emission factories face a special tariff. Since many of Ohio's factories still rely on fossil fuels, they're being penalized. That's caused Canadian companies to cancel contracts with steel manufacturers in places like Cleveland and Youngstown. Workers are losing jobs, plants are shutting down, farmers are hurting too. Corn and soybeans from Ohio are no longer as attractive to Canadian buyers, who are shifting toward European and domestic sources. Even the trucking industry is being affected. New emissions checks at the border are delaying shipments and increasing costs. That's made life harder for both shippers and customers. Ohio might not fall overnight, but its core industries are being chipped away, bit by bit. Number 6. Washington. Washington State is known for its high-tech companies, but honestly, many parts of its economy are still rooted in farming, logging, and cross-border trade. For years, Washington's apples, cherries, and wines have found a steady market in Canada, but that's changing. Canada now requires expensive food safety certifications for imported produce. Many small farmers just can't afford the new process. Entire harvests are sitting unsold. Some growers have even started destroying crops rather than spend money trying to export them. Washington's timber sector is also in trouble. U.S. wood is now taxed more heavily, while Canadian mills are getting new support from their government. Border towns that once thrived on lumber exports are struggling. What used to be a strong economic link between Washington and Canada has now become a barrier, and rural communities across the state are paying the price. Number 7. New York. New York State has a unique problem. While New York City remains a global financial hub, the northern and upstate regions of the state are deeply dependent on trade with Canada. Farms in upstate New York produce dairy, meat, and grain, all items that were once easily sold to Canadian buyers. But under the new law, Canadian stores must follow new animal welfare and traceability rules. Many U.S. farms can't meet those rules in time, and their exports are being rejected. Small factories in cities like Buffalo and Rochester are also in danger. They made everything from electronics to textiles for Canadian markets. But now, Canadian buyers are signing deals with suppliers in the EU or Asia instead, countries that align better with Canada's new environmental and labor standards. Tourism has also taken a hit. Fewer Canadians are crossing into New York for shopping or sightseeing due to increased border wait times and new insurance requirements. So while New York's economy might seem strong at a glance, huge sections of the state are facing serious stress. Number 8. Minnesota. Minnesota shares a long border with Canada, and that used to be an advantage. But now, it's one of the reasons the state is facing major trouble. Canada has introduced quotas on key imports from the U.S., including iron ore, pork, and dairy. That's bad news for Minnesota, which relies heavily on those exports. Mines in northern Minnesota are operating at reduced capacity. Steelmakers in Canada are sourcing their raw materials locally, leaving Minnesota's iron unneeded. As demand drops, so do jobs. Farmers in southern Minnesota are in a similar situation. Canada's new animal welfare standards make it harder to export pork and dairy, and many Canadian buyers have found cheaper or more compliant suppliers elsewhere. Minnesota also exports a lot of farm equipment and machinery, which is now being delayed or blocked by new electronic paperwork requirements. These delays are costing businesses money, and costing workers their jobs. With economic troubles spreading from rural towns to mid-sized cities, Minnesota may soon face a full-blown economic emergency if trade conditions don't improve. Canada's 2025 trade law wasn't meant to break the U.S. economy, but it's clearly having that effect. What started as a national policy shift has turned into a regional crisis across the United States. For these 8 states, the damage is already happening. From factories and farms to fishing boats and freight trucks, the impact is everywhere. Unless there's a major shift in trade negotiations or strong support from Washington, entire communities could be wiped out. And what we're seeing might not just be a temporary issue. It could signal a permanent change in the way North America does business. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Stay tuned for more updates on global policy, economics, and the everyday impact of international decisions.